What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, the world could be closer to a major global crisis than most people realize, and it's all centered around one region, one conflict, and one critical choke point that controls the flow of energy across the entire planet? Because that's exactly what's happening with the escalating confrontation between the United States and Iran, and the situation is changing fast. Over the past 24 hours, tensions have intensified dramatically. U.S. and Israeli forces have continued large-scale strikes targeting Iran's missile infrastructure, damaging dozens of launch sites and key facilities. Now, on the surface, that might sound like progress. Defense officials are claiming that Iran's ability to launch attacks has dropped significantly. But here's the reality: this is far from over. Iran is still launching missiles, still responding, and still showing that its military capabilities are far more resilient than many expected. And that's where things start to get dangerous, because this isn't just about airstrikes anymore. There are now serious discussions inside Washington about potential ground operations. Limited, targeted, but still boots on the ground. Think about that for a second. Once troops enter the equation, the entire nature of the conflict changes. And Iran has already made its position very clear, warning that any U.S. ground presence would trigger a direct and intense response. At the same time, the conflict is expanding beyond just two countries. Iran has launched attacks targeting U.S. interests and infrastructure across the region, from Gulf energy facilities to strategic industrial sites. This means the war is no longer contained, it's spreading. And that brings us to the most critical piece of this entire situation: the Strait of Hormuz. You may not hear about it every day, but this narrow stretch of water carries a massive portion of the world's oil supply. And right now, it's under serious threat. Iran has already taken steps that effectively disrupted shipping, removing millions of barrels of oil from the global market. The Guardian. And the impact? Massive. Oil prices have surged over 50% in just 1 month, the biggest spike in modern history. The Guardian. Markets are shaking, stocks are falling, and everyday costs, from gas to goods, are starting to rise. So while the conflict may feel distant, the consequences are already hitting closer to home. Now, here's where things get even more intense. U.S. leadership has signaled that this war isn't ending anytime soon. In fact, officials have openly stated that operations will continue until Iran's ability to pose a threat is effectively neutralized. New York Post. That's not a short-term objective. That's a prolonged strategy. And history tells us when conflicts reach this level, they rarely stay contained. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts are happening behind the scenes. Countries like Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia are trying to mediate and prevent a wider war. The Guardian, but here's the problem. Diplomacy takes time. And right now, events are moving faster than negotiations. So we're left with a critical question. Where does this go next? Because every new strike increases the risk of escalation. Every new retaliation widens the conflict. And every disruption to global energy markets sends shockwaves across the entire economy. This is no longer just a regional conflict. It's a global pressure point. And if things continue on this path, the impact won't just be measured in military terms, but in economic instability, supply chain disruptions, and rising costs for millions of people around the world. So the next time you hear about tensions in the Middle East, don't think of it as something far away, because what's happening there could shape your fuel prices, your investments, and even the global economy. And the real question is, are we watching a temporary conflict or the beginning of something much bigger? Because if this escalates any further, the next shock won't stay overseas, it will hit right here at home.